ancestry proudly present Peter Fitzsimon's Western Front.
Just a few days before Christmas in 1915, the last of the Anzac troops, exhausted and vulnerable, leave a place that has come to mean so much to them. In silence and in sorrow, the diggers board the boats just like this and leave Gallipoli for the final time. They don't know it yet, but these grizzled, battle-weary veterans are destined for a couple of pretty little villages in France. They're called Fromelles Pozieres, and more Australians will die here in just 6 weeks than in the entire Gallipoli campaign.
In the newspapers, we are wonders. Yet when it comes to reward and promotion, no Australian need apply. We are not considered fit to command our own men.
These words, scribed by Lieutenant Colonel Pompey Elliott, reflect the growing frustration many Australian soldiers are feeling after the Gallipoli campaign. Pompey Elliott has command of the 15th Brigade, filled with recruits so newly arrived from Australia, they still smell of gum leaves. Pompey is desperate to take the experienced officers from his Gallipoli battalion with him, but British command refuses. He must now train these greenest of troops to battle readiness as best and as quickly as he can. For word has it, things are far from quiet on the Western Front. British High Command asks the question, are the Australians ready? And the answer comes back, well, some of them are. And that, of course, we'll just have to do.
It will be a good thing for the Australians to get to France. It is an excellent training school, and the Germans will soon put them in order.
In early July 1916, the Battle of the Somme begins. As the more experienced Australian divisions prepare for an attack to take the high ground at Pozieres, Pompey Elliott and his hastily formed band of brothers are ordered to attack here at Fromelles. The goal? Keep any German reinforcements well away from the main game at Pozieres. But Pompey does not believe it will work. Brigadier General Pompey Elliott now embarks on the fight of his life for the lives of his men. He must get these orders changed. He begs his British superiors to get word to General Sir Douglas Haig, the chief of all British forces in France. They must find somewhere better to launch this attack or abandon it. In desperation, Pompey Elliott concludes by playing his ace, hurling down a booklet issued by Haig's own headquarters.
Trench-to-trench attack. Such an attack cannot possibly succeed if the enemy's frontline trench is distant more than 200 yards from the hop-off.
Pompey's men must travel double that distance, 400 yards, in broad daylight, against machine guns firing hundreds. But his pleas for reason fall upon deaf ears. The order to attack remains. Pompey Elliott then writes to his wife Kate.
This evening we will start a battle. I am now awaiting the signal which will launch so many of my poor boys to their death.
A little before 6 p.m. that day, with 3 whistle blows, Pompey Elliott's men are ordered over the top. The results are as unsurprising as they are still shocking. Exactly as predicted. A bloody holocaust, the worst 24 hours in Australian history. Pompey's intelligence officer could never forget what he saw that morning.
If you had gathered the stock of 1,000 butcher shops, cut it into small pieces and strewn it about, it would give you a faint conception of the shambles those trenches were in.
By the following morning, it's over. Despite acres of French ground, being drenched in Australian blood, covered with our dead and wounded. Not an inch of that ground has been held. The British general who planned the attack keeps a stiff upper lip.
The Australians had been gallant, but were not sufficiently trained. I think the attack, although it failed, has done them a great deal of good.
General Pompey Elliott, the famed hard man of the 15th Brigade, returns to his headquarters, puts his head in his hands, and sobs like a baby. The Battle of Pozieres, which begins only a few days after Fromelles, is no less horrific. The Australians take the village, but nigh on 7,000 more diggers are dead. 16,000 are wounded, and many of those wish they were dead. It was a famous victory, if something that came at a cost of 23,000 casualties in just 6 weeks could be called that. Pompey Elliott survives the war, returns home to his Kate, and then, in 1931, a couple of months before his 53rd birthday, he takes his own life. Just one of the thousands of Australians who lost from the so-called Great War that which could never be recovered. Lives, sanity, innocence, everything, lest we forget.